Everyone. Today is Wednesday, November 20th, and this is a meeting of the Senior Center Site Selection and Building Committee. This meeting will be held in person at the location provided on this notice. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance via via Zoom is being offered as a courtesy to the public. Oh, I lost my camera. Sorry. Just as we were saying, this meeting or hearing will not be suspended or terminated if technological problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in a specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus Zoom versus virtual attendance accordingly. This meeting will be live on Zoom. The public may access the proceedings by joining Zoom meeting ID 375-414-6055 or by calling 929-205-6099. For additional information about remote participation, please contact Carly Antonellis, Assistant Town Manager at atm@ayer.ma.us or 978-772-8220 extension 100 prior to the meeting. All right. I call us to order at 6:35 p.m. And give me just 2 seconds to figure out why the camera is not. I lost the owl.
Team wants to open that new park by 2028. That's a lot lower. Outside the ball,
Not sure what happened. Oh,
The power cord came out.
there we go. All right. Co-chair, do you want to handle any additions to the thing while I try and work this out for just a second?
Okay, so we have the proposed changes to the agenda. I guess we need a motion first to approve the agenda, then we'll talk about the amendments.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
Well, second.
I think.
Well,
Oh, yeah. Okay, yep.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second, we're now on the discussion, so we would like to, under 4.5, add a category called capital contract and budget overview below the capital planning presentation. And that would be the only amendment
Any other amendments?
that I'm aware of.
Yep.
Anyone else have any changes to the agenda we want to recommend? Add? Now, we'll go to the agenda as amended. I know that we approve the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor? Opposed?
All right, wonderful. Thank you, Co-chair. All right, so approval of the September 11th and November 4th minutes. Believe September 11th is still outstanding.
It is.
With Dennis. Is that the one? Yeah, okay, so that one will be resolved by the next meeting. And I believe I sent out the minutes for 11/4. I actually don't remember now. Did everyone have a chance to review them? No? That seems like a no. Okay, do we want to table both of those minutes to the next meeting? Okay. All right, all in favor of tabling? Aye. Great, chair says aye. All right, that brings us to site due diligence updates. I was hoping we could go through those that Dan or Ken could take us through those fairly quickly so we could get most of our time on I think number 4. So the review of the completed phase 1 environmental.
Yeah, so yeah, for the phase 1 environmental site assessment, just in brief, the only potential recognized environmental concern, potential wreck. Was PFAS groundwater contamination potentially from the Moore Airfield base? Because they have that up there in Devon's where they're doing the cleanup. So that was the only identified through the 21E of a potential wreck. And otherwise, the site didn't have issues from the rest of the review they did. So in short, that's what we had.
And can that concern, given that we're gonna be using town water, which is not PFAS contaminated? How is that potential concern addressed? How is the potential concern of the PFAS at the airfield addressed such that it's taken off as a problem?
So I think the way we gotta look at it is our use of the site, and does it impact that use? You know, if this was a real estate transaction, then maybe this would trigger a phase 2. But since this isn't, and we're gonna be using it for a senior center, and we're bringing public water supply to the site, we're not gonna be impacted by that groundwater there. So in my opinion, I would say there's no reason to do any further due diligence for that potential wreck. You know, how could it impact our use of the site?
And who do we tell that to?
Take off only, thank goodness.
Tell it to the architect.
Yeah.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah, I think Dan V's assessment is correct. The 21E is designed, phase 1 is designed to note that there may be a problem caused by maybe existing buildings on a site, a previous dump site, and it didn't identify any of that other than the PFAS groundwater. So I think it's a good sign. I think you're going to be okay.
Ian, is there any way- we went online to look at the report. Am I correct? And that was over 1,300 pages long. Or is that something that I missaw?
I think you're right. They are typically, there's a lot of
All the data.
appendices. Yeah, lots of data and maps.
Is the way, can we ask him to give us the executive summary and the report and get rid of the data so we can all be able to just look at the report only and not
Yeah.
the tables and.
We could do that too. Just
Yeah.
cut that out of
But
there.
he should be able to do that. So
Yeah.
we can have
As a
something.
PDF. Yeah.
We don't have to go on the, that special site that's get set up to get it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I downloaded it. So I mean, I could easily just cut that out, and
Oh, okay.
get it to us, get it to everybody.
People are interested in reading it, I'm guessing, but maybe they're not.
Not really,
Oh.
but, I,
Thank you.
Well, but I do think we want to be able to put the results of that
Well,
on the
put that up on
website,
the
so I think if we could have a shortened version of that. and then-
Yeah,
refer
Would
to
be
the
great.
longer. Does this mean that there's no issues with the landings turtle and that other?
this doesn't look at that. This is
Oh, that's-
different. That's the habitat assessment.
Oh, okay, sorry.
That, the turtle.
But in terms of the PFAS, I think it's important that we be able to concisely communicate to the public that the issue has been looked at, PFAS as an issue for the senior center on Bishop Road would not be a concern. Because we're using public water, it's on the other side of the road, it's. And I think maybe it even drains the other way, so.
And then one question, we're not drilling a well or anything.
Right.
Are we?
We're not utilizing the groundwater there at all. Right.
And would that be the case then for any outdoor? I don't know if towns
Gardening.
can even put in outdoor irrigation systems anymore, because there's always a water main.
That would be a Board of Health thing if
Okay.
that was pursued, but
Gotcha.
I just advise
Okay.
against it if we already know that.
Yeah.
Issue. Yeah,
Is that in the area where you can't put a well? So I know my house, there's the area of concern about the arsenic doesn't come down that far.
no, it doesn't go that far.
Okay, that's a different
We
discussion.
could put one if we wanted to.
I think just.
Yeah, yeah.
John Catton made a mention of a couple of things, but the other things they're looking at is really oil that's been dropped on the site, or them leftover
Right.
barrels on the site, so it's a complete looking at. They did a on-site surveillance and walked around and.
And
Whatever
historic
case might be.
documentation,
Right.
right,
So
the city.
we're trying to see if there's anything that's been left around by somebody else that could be, not good for the site.
Yeah,
Clean site, you knew it from, kind of knew it from the beginning.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um. Verbal results back for the habitat assessment, do you,
yeah.
do you want to hold that till you have an official report?
No, I have an email. I asked for one from Steve from Goddard Consulting. So basically, in short. Let me get my notes together here. So for the Blandings turtle, so there's two species, just to refresh everyone's memory out there for the Habitat Endangered Species Act. The Blandings turtle and the New England blazing star plant. So for the turtle, he said it seems permittable with conditions, and he thinks it likely wouldn't trigger what's called a conservation and management permit. He said there's like limited nesting areas and the impact to the forest is not a big issue. Long story short with that, he's finalizing the report, and we still will have to, after that, meet with Natural Heritage and discuss with them. Just to be sure of what exactly we will need for the permitting there, but it was a positive outcome based on what he saw. So we'll see what goes on after that. To see if we need that conservation and management permit, or if it can just be permitted simply by Natural Heritage with conditions. For the New England blazing star plant, he didn't identify any out there. It's a very low value area. Most of the area, the only portion really that could potentially have it is by the street. It really needs open areas. It can't be in a wooded area there, you don't find the plant in a wooded area. So, we'll obviously have to talk to Natural Heritage. Worst case, they might make us do a formal survey in summer, and then we might have to move some plants if we find them. But he doesn't think it's much of a big deal. So it's, I guess, in final, his review out there was it brought positive outcome. Things didn't look too bad. But we still have to go through the step now of talking to Natural Heritage. So he mentioned he'd get the report either this week or next. So I'd anticipate shortly after that, talking to Natural Heritage, and I already gave him the contact info for the person I met with for a pre-permitting meeting, and he actually knows the guy from other projects. So try to get that moving as soon as we can.
And that Natural Heritage is a state or a federal or?
State Division of Fisheries and Wildlife, state.
It's an overlay, it just overlays that land with a lot of other land. It's,
Yeah.
It basically says if you're in that biodiversity location, they'll send us a letter, basically.
Oh.
The letter itself, so good.
Yeah.
That's what's in that. That's good.
So yeah, it was pretty good. So obviously, once I get the report, I'll share that right away and keep it moving.
It's great news. All right, any updates on the survey process?
So, yeah, I didn't contact them exactly yet, but basically, I know they finished in I want to say 2 weeks ago was the last time I talked to them. And they finished in the field, the work is done in the field. So they're basically putting the drawing together now, that will be the drawing that we look at and show to John Catlin as well. And then when we agree that that drawing is what we want, that drawing will be ready to go to the planning board to be signed. But, and then at that point in time, you're gonna stake the perimeter for us. So they were apprehensive. I asked them if they should just go ahead and do it now, so that we could go out and take a look in the field as a group, but they're apprehensive that we might find something, we might want to change a line or move it around a little bit. So until we have a review of the drawing to give us, so I'm gonna say next week, we'll get that plan. And it should be done by then. So that, remember that plan will also include topography, they're doing the topography and comparing that to the state. What's that plate name, John? The name for the state. There's an overlay that gives you topography, so they're comparing.
GIS.
But anyway, they're comparing the field report with documents that are already available to see if it matches up. So we get the correct topography. And that's it. So I think in the same vein with your work, they've gone down the street, right? They're done in the field.
Yeah, they're done in the field. I haven't spoken to them at all, but I know they did go down the corridor of the street all the way to Park Street for the
So
water.
just to remind the board, we added a small piece of work to the lot work to include a survey of the road where the water line would be potentially initially installed. So at the same time, we'll have a drawing of the street all the way to Park Street. That'll match
They'll
up.
have, they'll have benchmarks noted too, I think.
Yeah, those are there. I saw the benchmarks.
Yeah,
They-
okay, good.
And there's quite a few flags out there now, but I'd be speculating if I knew exactly what they were. So we'll just have to wait about another week. But nothing else radical about that. Well, interesting.
Great.
So we hope to have the plan for our next meeting. We can take a look at it. Double check that John feels everything will fit and that we are content with the shape. And we'll send it to the planning. We'll go from there.
So the flags delineating.
Well, what I want to do is,
Why?
I wanted you
And-
guys to be able to walk out and see it after it was decided on where the shape would be,
Of the building or the lot?
the lot.
The lot, right?
Right.
Okay.
So in the same time, they've looked at, I think, for potential locations for septic system and so forth at the same time. The building is gonna be marked out anyway for borings, right?
Yeah,
We could stake the building for sure.
we already did.
Yeah,
There's a lot of stakes out there right now, all the borings, the building corners, I think Ross put the corner of the 3 acre parcel with
Yeah,
it.
sorry, but I didn't want to speculate.
I think that's what it is,
Yeah.
but I didn't ask, yeah.
So a lot's been done and we're in good shape for that
Yeah.
as well.
Good. And Dan, you had an update on the deep borings.
Yes, that's the borings. Yeah, so, yeah, we hired a contractor, Geotechnical Consultants, Inc. And, they're gonna be out there next Wednesday to complete the borings, and those are all marked out. Our highway division helped clear a little path to make sure they can get their ATV rig over to all the locations. And so it's all queued up to go, so they'll get going at 7 AM next Wednesday. I don't know if Dan or you or John wanna be out there. To
Yeah,
check it out at all.
I'd love to volunteer Dan to come down. I think
All
we'd
right.
love the opportunity, right, Dan?
Yeah. Sure.
I think it's talking about his Dan.
Yeah.
Couple wee ones, but yeah, I could do that.
I could be there with.
Is that
The golf course.
30?
I know it's the day before Thanksgiving, so.
It's cute. It's really cool. I see this machine. going.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my older two are out of school.
Is there any new news on moving the gate? This came up at, I think, the select board, and moving the gate or mass development committing to it.
Yeah.
Getting it done.
Field meeting is scheduled for December 2nd with Devon's and US Fish and Wildlife. So we're gonna visit it then. Hopefully we get some good news after that, but still aiming it'd be spring when it gets done. So,
But there are no hiccups in willingness, desire.
no, it's all been positive, yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing's turned back at all.
So this has been a busy week of meetings, and so I was hoping that we could first talk about the public input session on November 7th. And then transition to yesterday and today's meetings with the select board and capital planning. So we had on November 7th, we had 37 people in attendance and an additional 5 on Zoom. One of them was the IT director, so roughly 40 people in attendance. Thank you to everyone who was able to be there. And I don't know, my impression of the meeting that I was hoping we could kind of share a little bit about it was that the presentation went well. People asked thoughtful, insightful questions. The small group discussions seemed like people were really well engaged. So I feel like the format was successful. So I kind of wanted to talk about it in 2 regards. One, did we feel like that format is a format we'd want to repeat going forward for our additional public input meetings? And then make the content of it or the findings of it, what we surmised from it. And I know you had taken all of the responses as well. So do we want to kind of go around the table and? Okay, start that way, Linda. So I had a small group, but I think that overall everyone was in favor of it. What I heard from my group and a lot of the other people there, they were concerned about the size of the building. And whether it was gonna pass at town meeting and what our backup plan was. They were all in favor. My group that I was with was more interested in the inside, the programs and events. Not so much interested in the fitness and the outdoor space. But everybody was in favor, and was looking forward to a more local place to use. And then I found that one is somebody who's newly senior, is looking forward to using the center for socialization purpose. The other people that I met with, they use a lot of different, centers in the area based on the programs and events that are offered. Not more, not really for the, other activities, but more the social or lectures and programs offered. And the cost to individuals was a concern, or, they were really worried about how this was gonna impact lower income families or residents. But size, I heard at another table comment, Taj Mahal, I had a gentleman comment, we don't need the Cadillac. So those were some, I think, of the top concerns I took from it, from all the different groups that I heard answers from.
I didn't have a group, but I do remember, that was a lot of what I remember hearing.
My group was, consisted of actually, all seniors who utilized this building. And again, the big concern was the size. There was a quote of, we don't need a Taj Mahal. But, counter to that, they were very interested in, a lot of the programs that would be offered, utilizing the space, appropriately. And more so than what they've been currently using. I think, and again, I think it was, another, like a financial, issue as well, that was raised. I really can't remember anything else that was, it was just sort of some little nitty gritty things about like placing of like the bathrooms and elevator and just weird, interesting things that were, kind of just like pinpointing small details about the building.
I wasn't there.
Make it, yeah.
I had three women, seniors. One of them was pretty negative about, do we really need this? Why is it so expensive? Why is it so big? Why do you charge $3 to people who, for lunch, to some people who have their own houses and could easily afford more? She just, I don't know. She was questioning everything. The other two, one of them was more skeptical and was concerned about the amount of money. And I said, well, how much money would you be okay with? Because we were talking about 250 and she's like, well, maybe 200. But at the end, one of them left, the one who was very skeptical left before we asked him for a show of hands. The other two did, show their hands, and the woman who had said she didn't think, she said, you pretty much convinced me we need to do this. So I think the format is good in terms of answering people's questions, concerns. But there was a lot of skepticism, particularly about size and price.
Yeah.
The three in my group, interestingly enough, were all seniors, but they had never used any senior center, not only this one. And so, I think we had some newsletters there, so I got the newsletters for them and, talked about my experience with senior centers but they were all positive and, they didn't really have concerns about cost or.
The group that I was with, they were all positive. There was some concern about the size, like, do we need all that? And is there a plan B? That is, if you had to make it smaller, how would you do it? Kind of thing. They were universally supportive of the idea of having a senior center. And they could not. That is, they tried to elicit what would make it more palatable to you in terms of the size or the cost. And they can't really articulate a clear, like if 16.6 is too much, would 14.7 feel better, or would 13.2? So I didn't get a clear sense of what would overcome that objection. You know, other than to say, you know, what we need is what, you know, this group in Katie's work and John Catlin's work has told us what the community needs. So.
My table with, only a group of four, two of them were myself and my wife, so it's a little bit prejudiced at the table, but. I did have I had invited the planning board to attend, and so one of the younger members of the planning board was at my table. And the other person at my table was from Pace. So our discussion had more to do with the land in general, and this whole thing we've been talking about. Check this, if you check that, which I was able to explain to that. So that pretty much, that took almost all the time that we had to discuss the senior center. The planning board member was very, I think it would be a supporter, because he supports in general development that is, he believes in the long run is good for the town. So there's a concept there that's very important to us, you know, do we as a board step up and say, you know, this is one of our steps to keep the town of Ayer growing in a positive way. And he kind of took that line. It's that's something that would help you to think that way, but you know, just how much it costs and how much big it is and all the other stuff. But are we ready as a community to say, you know what, as a community, we need to take this step? We, you know, encourage this kind of growth. We think it's a good thing for that part of town. He pointed that out. He said he really liked the location. So I thought it was a still different angle than what we're talking about. We never really talked about the money on the sides. We talked some environment stuff. We talked about the future of the town.
And I did not get any pushback on the location. That is, everybody was pretty comfortable with where it was, and you know, it was easy to get to and all that. I mean, I didn't get any pushback on this location.
So do I hear everyone saying that that format is what we should repeat going forward?
No, I think we need to, I mean, I think it would be good for, and this is partly coming from the, you know, the select board meeting, a more open format where people can respond to the entire group, ask questions, you know, in public. And then have them answered in public so that the group, you know, the entire assembly can hear what the concerns are and can hear those concerns addressed.
So more so than talking in the small groups and then reporting back, but
Right.
just maybe some formats to skip that and go directly to individual question and answer.
Yeah, because I think that for some, the presentation is, the time spent on the presentation, that is, they have the handout, and for a lot of people, they've heard this information kind of bubbling up around town. And I think it would be good for us to have a format where somebody comes up to the microphone and says, you know, I really think this is important and or, you know, why can't it be smaller, or I think it's too expensive. But then they do it in a kind of open, public way, and then have their concerns addressed and questions answered, and
Like a mini town meeting kind of format.
yeah.
One of the things that's clear, that video screen sucks. So that's no doubt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to.
So you basically can just use the handout and walk people through the handout. The screen is useless. You can't,
I agree.
and I was happy about one thing, the acoustics seemed pretty good. You sounded good in the audience, many times in town hall. The acoustics is poor.
So the
That was-
webcam was changed. So I don't know. That wouldn't really affect the in-person acoustics, but I know that the web recording was supposedly better because supposedly,
I want to look at it.
no, okay.
But
But then APAC also recorded it, so they should be posting that soon. My suggestion would be that we not do that room anymore. that there are other venues in town that will be have just as much capacity and might be better acoustically too. Like the Council on Aging, for example, was suggesting partnering with friends to do a smaller reception type thing at local restaurants, you know, to bring in smaller groups of people. You know, we can certainly always do them here. The room, I'm gonna call it the back room at the elementary school, but the one where the it's not where the school committee met. Well, that one's right into the left, and then there's the back one.
People have trouble just finding that.
Yeah, so the school's an option too, the library as well, so. But I hear you,
I
the
didn't have a
sticks are not
problem.
right in there.
I think the location's good. I think people like to go to town hall for a meeting, they just intuitively they think. But I just thought the screen doesn't help you much.
I think you need some kind of visual though, instead of
Yeah.
just
Well,
talking
nice,
to
but it's
people.
When
I
you
think-
put when you put the slides up on the screen, the lettering gets too small.
I was thinking
I get
about,
some really good vision.
yeah, I
Yeah.
was thinking about trying to. Scrounge up, I know the town doesn't own any more of those like old school.
We have a very large one that we use a lot. It's large enough even for town meeting. And you get a good projector and it can be very crisp. And it's easy to go back and forth on it. One of the
Yeah.
problems with monitors is that there's a glare on them.
Yeah.
And there's a problem with focus. But on a you know, a 6x8 screen or larger with good reflective surfaces with a good projector, it's an amazingly good way of presenting. And we'd be happy to lend you both the projector and the screen.
Well, and that's why I was gonna suggest other venues, because I have a projector, I just don't have a big screen, because when we're here at the senior center, I project on the wall. But all of the rooms in the school have those projectors that pull down out of the ceiling, and I can bring my own, I mean, they have the screen that pulls down and I can bring the projector, but I wanna see the big movie size one that
Yeah, really.
that John has, that'd be great.
But you do need,
And then
people
for
are just
town
too
meeting.
oriented to
Yeah.
visual.
No, I definitely think. we
Oh, you
can
need
do
to show
that.
something. It just needs to be bigger.
And I will say, the presentation I gave tonight for capital planning was condensed. I didn't time myself, but I think we could probably tighten up that presentation as well, so. All right. Okay, any other thoughts on the public input section?
I was surprised that there weren't more people who zoomed into it or. That we didn't get more, that was, as I had anticipated a bigger in-person presence as well, so. I'm just surprised that the general public is not now kind of coming to these things with. And I guess 34 people is not nothing. But I was just hoping for more people. But everybody else anticipated that number, so obviously
Well, and hopefully it will pick up momentum as we go, as more people learn about the project, or as we try different venues, different marketing, different ways to advertise the events. Hopefully we'll get some different groups of people, and then, public participation is never as high as you want it to be, but
Well, yeah, and especially in this day and age, people are just not as engaged.
one of the things I'd like to do, and I have a draft publicity plan somewhere in our pile here. Would be to add more deliverables. We shot some footage of what the senior center looks like down here on a typical day. So I need to spend some time editing that and getting it into something that we can post on the website, on social media. Get that out, as well as I'd like to go through the presentation and just do a recording of my voice over PowerPoints. So that can be a finished deliverable as well.
Can we talk about more about what, there was so many questions about the programs and activities. Should we focus more on that? I know we're trying to, this is going to be the building, but should we, possibly address those? Like, what is this really gonna do for you? We're talking a lot about the building, the size. Should we reverse the order, talk about more what this is going to do for you, why you need this, and then now this is why we need this building, this is why we need this size, maybe reverse. Because there was several people that wanted to know more about programs, activities. So I think we should get that message out. This is what it really can do for you. And I mean, obviously, we have to focus on the building, but I think maybe focus on other areas as well.
Actually, that's a really good point. And Katie, one thing we could do is provide you with images of programs in action at other centers. Everything from quilting to Zumba to weight to meal events, lectures. We have a lot of visuals that could kind of be worked into your presentation. Give
That
people,
would be
give a
fantastic.
real sense of how dramatic it is when you have, 200 people for a lunch, which we were just at Wilbraham the other day. And there were 200 people for a lunch and performance. It's amazing. So I think if you do not so much emphasizing the grandeur of the building, but rather what you're suggesting there is what programs happen and how much fun people have doing it.
Now, that's a good point. Yeah.
One thing I've done with the stormwater and some other items was made videos. And I think it really helps people feel it. It's a lot of work to put them together, but the stormwater, we went out, we showed them, here's the stormwater coming down on an impervious area and how quickly it goes in the drain. We go out in the conservation area and it doesn't even seem like it's raining because the canopy's getting it. So showing maybe a video of the existing condition here, and I don't know if there's any video we could create or get from the other centers of an activity there. I feel like people would really get a good video
that's
to
good.
see this is what this is what we are now, here's what it could be. Type of thing. It's a lot of work, but.
Thanks for volunteering.
We actually have a number of videos that we could give you.
Yeah,
Also, quite honestly, Katie could also talk with the director in Wilbraham and the director in Longmeadow and other centers around this area. And the one thing I would bring up about cost, because cost has gotten really high. We were just at a walkthrough in Northbridge for their new center. And the town administrator who was giving the walkthrough made a very astute comment. He said, we could have done this 10 years ago for half the cost that we're talking about today. If we wait another 5 years, it's going to be 30-40% more than what we're talking about today. So cost, what has been dramatic for us as architects and for our clients is that the cost factor is jumped up 40-50% as much in 1 year, much less over 4 or 5 years. So one of the things is that this is now getting pretty expensive. It's always astounds me that something could cost $900 a foot when we were doing it for $300 a foot 10 years ago. So just be aware, one of the arguments is, yes, we can make it smaller. We could also do in such a way to make it expandable. But the real issue is that the more it gets delayed, it just gets really expensive. So just a thought about cost.
And I think to that point, I meant to raise this, I think today, is that there's a cost, and that right now we're thinking at 16.6 million. So we have a sense of what the cost is for doing it. But I don't think people think very often about what the cost of not doing it is. That is the cost of not having a building adequate to meet the community's needs in terms of the number of meals not served, the social relationships not made, the physical fitness that doesn't occur, which causes more falls in the home. The seniors that do not thrive living alone because they have no place to go during the day. There are tremendous social costs to not having this available. And there tends to be a discussion about it. The only cost is the money to build it. But the failure to build it has tremendous costs on the community. And I think people should be able to recognize that.
Dennis has mentioned this before, and it sounds great to us. The problem is it's not measurable. they can measure the cost in black and white with numbers, but they can't measure that, what you just talked about. So we can talk about the value of this and the cost of that, which is significant, but there's no measurable variable that people can say, wait a minute, that really's got a factor to
Well,
it.
I mean, you have to personalize that if you want to speak
It's
to
hard to
that.
sell it because it's not measured.
Actually, there is a way of measuring it. And if you talk to, I think a good person to talk to might be the director at Wilbraham, but also the director at Walpole. They keep very close tabs on who comes and who. Like, a good example is that when Wilbraham opened, their average person group in there was maybe, between 5 and 15 or 20 people. Now they're averaging 150 to 200. The difference there is that there's a real value to that because we're keeping our elders active and engaged. And I know for a fact that there's some numbers out there, and I think MCOA may have those numbers, Katie.
There's actually, this is actually what I did my dissertation in, many years ago, the social determinants of health and the health impact of isolation is equivalent in dollars to someone who smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. The healthcare costs are like, those are readily available and measurable. So we can report those. I haven't gone down that route because I don't want to bore people with data and statistics.
And I don't think you gain anything.
Right. But I do think having some of that information available so that we as a committee are able to speak to it when it's relevant in the conversation would be very helpful. So I will look into some quick facts on those.
Then, John, is there any one way I've thought about looking at it is if a vibrant, active, engaged senior center were available, how much longer could an older senior center stay in their home independently?
Yeah.
Because they had a place to go to during the day and they had good meals and they could kind of, talk with the guys and, maybe watch a ball game together. As opposed
NCOA, NCOA, the National Council on Aging, has a lot of stats on that. But I think also it might be good to get, we could go to a couple of brand new centers. It doesn't have to be one of ours. And get some testimonials of seniors who before and after and how their life has changed. It is all part of the PR process of getting people to understand how important these centers are. I can tell you that if they weren't important, we wouldn't have done 40 or 50 of them. I mean, towns, one after the other. In fact, I think in Northbridge today, the town administrator says, we've waited too long for this center and we have to do it now. And I know in Wilbraham, we spent 9 years getting it out the door and built. And when it got done, I'm not kidding. I drove in the other day and I drove in today at Wilbraham, and you had to hunt for a parking space. The old center, there's hardly anybody there over at the Y. So, I mean, what we should do, Katie, and maybe you and I can make some calls on this, talk to a couple of these directors and see where we can get some testimonies of what a difference it's made in their lives. It's really dramatic. It's hard to describe, as Ken was saying. How do you tell anybody that?
My theory was that we will understand all that you're doing as a committee. This is a fantastic group. We will clearly be able to delineate it, but I'm not sure we can get that measurable to the voter, because they're looking at different things. They're looking at costs, real costs, and they're looking at real size. Even though we know the benefits, it's hard to sell that.
Well,
That's
and
all I'm saying.
that's where I agree with you, but I do think we have to attack it from many angles.
Yeah.
And one of the things that has been missing for the senior center, we could have a far more robust social media presence than we do. So maybe you accomplish some of those things by a single post that goes out to the community and gets shared, which is a testimonial. you do it in bits and pieces. It's not like you're trying to have people come and hear an hour-long presentation and you jam it all down their throat at one point. Like you can't, it has to be spread out and spaced out and like the
Yeah.
videos, the presentations, like it all has to come together into a package.
One thing I would suggest for this committee, just to get your head around it, is go to I think it's the Facebook site for Long Meadow, and see what it's an extremely active Facebook. Before they did this center, they had very few things shown on their Facebook. Now you get on their Facebook and you see what they're doing. It is amazing. And I think it's probably similar. I haven't checked Wilbraham's or Walpole's lately, but I am friends with Facebook on Longmeadow, and in fact, I grab pictures off it all the time as part of my presentation package. So it's worth going and just take the time some afternoon and check it out.
All right, moving on to the select board update from last night. We extended the table, you were there too, yeah, we updated the select board on, the last, I think, 2 months since we had been to the select board and focused kind of on, site updates as well as proposed a special town meeting timeline. And then reviewed a little bit of the public input process that we had done so far. So that was the 3 main topics of our update. And then there was a robust conversation that happened after that. Thoughts, comments, questions?
I'd like to. Can I do it?
Okay, yeah.
I'm very concerned, and I think it was echoed by the select board and by Jim at the planning, capital planning. I think we have a lot of red flags right now about whether or not we're gonna get this building as is through the town meeting. And the selectmen, and they said they were trying to help us because they support the project. They think it's, obviously it looks wonderful, but they didn't think, considering that the taxes are going up, that there's a new stormwater treatment assessment of like $100 a year, that taken in concert with this $250 a month, that people were going to go for that. And they were worried about it. And that what they said was, originally somebody, not us, published the fact that it was going to be a $14 million building. And that was before we knew how much the utilities were. And then it came out as a 16 million building. And they feel there hasn't been any effort to try to make adjustments in the building to try to make up for that extra money. And I had lunch today with 3 seniors at the senior center who come here all the time, who support the idea that we desperately need another senior center. And every one of them said they weren't sure they could vote for it because of the cost. Now, if those people are not going to vote for this, I don't know who the hell is. And I mean, I'm in a relatively affluent community and most of them have said that they would. But we also have, as the select people said, you also have to get the non-seniors to vote for this, which is another effort. But I'm just saying, I think we have to try to make some kind of an effort to look at the design as it stands. I'm not saying, the capital planning board said, I've had people asking me, why can't it be a little bit smaller? Why can't it be a little bit cheaper? And I think this is what we're going to come up against. And the select people said, if it gets voted down, they don't think that you're gonna be able to go back, even if you do make some changes, because people are gonna feel, we already voted this down.
It's gonna cost more for the bank.
And it'll cost more, but if they're not gonna go for it, I just think there's so many red flags that people feel this is too much. The Taj Mahal, I heard that again today. You know, people in Ayer tend to think of themselves as more working class, and we're not Groton, we're not Harvard, we're not, why do we have this huge center that's bigger than Groton? Groton's, what, 11,000 feet, square feet. So I want to know, is there a way that we can look at this plan, these floor plans, and say, what can we do that would offer some adjustment in cost? That hopefully, I'm not trying to, oh, let's get rid of the weight room or anything like that. But, you know, I'm very supportive of the covered walk around path around the building. But I'd rather have a senior center without the walk around the building than this beautiful design that includes the walk and it's voted down. And I mean, does anybody else feel that there's a good chance that it's gonna be voted down?
No.
You don't?
We have a lot of, those are all ad alternates that you're talking about. It does not have to be included in the base cost. And we've broke those out in the cost estimate. If you break those out, it drops the cost about a million and a quarter. And if you want us to, we'll give you those numbers without those pickleball courts,
Like half.
all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more like half.
But-
You need the pickleball.
Yeah, but that's gonna be paid, right? Yeah. Is there anything else? Is there anything else in terms of the material you're using on the outside of the building or the dormers or, because I think it was Wilbraham at the town meeting where you all had to make adjustments, didn't you, to the cost of the building?
No. No.
So, Ellen, can I ask, in your conversations with these people who feel like the number is too high,
Mm-hmm.
have they told you what number they would feel comfortable with?
No,
That is, they feel that 16.6 is too much.
yeah, and 250,
All right, so would they
That's too
say that 14.9 is better and 235 I could tolerate?
I think that we should try to hit at least $1 million in terms of deductions.
And what do you base that $1 million on?
I just want to try to show that we're aware that people would, I mean, they say it's great that we're going to look for grants and we're going to look for donations and we're going to look for all these things. But in talking to Matt and Wilbraham, who got all these things, he said, I'll come out, and he sent me all their materials. Don't even bother to go to anybody to make these donations until you get the town approval. So we can't go to them and say, we have these guaranteed grants, or we have these donations, because it hasn't been approved by town.
Well, and regardless, the way that town meeting, the way the bond process works is that we have, the warrant has to go for the total cost. And then if you get grants, you borrow less. If you get a substantial amount of donations,
Yeah,
you
I
borrow
understand
less.
that,
So,
but they're looking at that number of what it could be.
yep,
You know?
It's up to a number. It doesn't necessarily have to be. I think everyone that I talk to is, they have this number stuck in their brain, right? It's like, oh, my taxes are going up by $250 a year. What does this mean, right? Well, it doesn't have to be $250 a year. It could be 200, it could be maybe 195.
That's just for the senior center. There's also the stormwater treatment that's gonna go up, and the
That's
tax.
basically just a realignment of the costs. We just moved it from one category to another.
Well, but they're thinking of it as
No,
new.
they're misunderstanding.
I mean, look at the last election in terms of the economy, and however much you may think, oh, the economy was great. There are a lot of people in this country who thought it was terrible because of the price of eggs.
They like to believe lies.
Okay, but
well,
I don't know,
let's not
I
get
just,
into- I think national politics is beyond.
no,
this
I'm
week.
just saying, my gut tells
Let
me.
it go, let it go.
But can we go around and I'd like to get a sense because what I hear you saying is that you are interested in a substantive conversation, including, you know, potentially billable time to our architect, about changing direction, about looking for things. So I'd like to just, it's just a straw poll, it's not a vote. How many people think we're at that place and how many people don't? And then I think we can continue to discuss, I do want to continue to discuss these two meetings more in general, but does everyone feel comfortable with that sort of a straw poll?
That's why I said in the beginning, we should have said 20 million at the beginning. And then we come in and we say, look, we're 16.4. How great is that? And everybody would have said, oh my God, you guys were the best.
I mean, for me, I think that. Well, who is that?
Your phone? That's the house phone.
No, that's the ride. Someone's calling to schedule a van ride.
Oh, I
It just takes it out.
At 7:30, yeah. Sorry about that.
So, I mean, there are a couple of things. I think that our responsibility to the community is to try to build the building that we feel the community needs and will need for the next 50 years that can properly meet the needs of the community. Everything I've learned and heard from other senior centers is that a huge warning, do not build it too small. If you build it too small, it will be inadequate to meet the community's needs. And if it's inadequate to meet the community's needs, you will not grow the programming. And if you attempt to add on to it or expand it later, it's only going to cost you more money. For whatever reason, misinformation got out into the community that there was a 14.2 number. And we changed it to 16.6, and that there was this kind of illegitimate rise in cost without some concomitant cost cutting at the other side. That was never the case. 14.2 was never a real number. And people who looked at it closely understood that. The real number is 16.6. If at some point we can get the grants, or if the electrical utility to the site comes in a little bit less, or if the site work can be managed, you know, somewhat more cheaply, that's all to the good, and that cost will come down, and I think the community will be proud of us. But I don't feel comfortable telling Ayer, you should settle for less, because there is some, you know, notion that we can't afford this. Because it is objectively true that the community can in fact afford this. I mean, we are not stretching the town's budget to do that. For the individual homeowners, I, as a senior, have no kids in the school. I will vote for supporting the schools when that thing comes to. I certainly hope that the schools will support the seniors when it comes to that. And so, I mean, my feeling is, I think we need to fulfill our charge to the seniors in town.
Also, I'd like to bring up one side thing to help Ellen with some of the numbers that you've been hearing. I believe in Katie, or I think Ellen, didn't you call Matt over in Wilbraham about their fundraising?
Yeah, he sent me all his materials.
Did he tell you how much he's raised so far?
I think it was 930,000 and he's hoping
Almost
he's
$1
hoping
million.
to get to $1 million by the end of the year.
So he's already raised $1 million towards paying for the senior center. And that can be designated different ways. Most towns, what they do is they get the 501(c)(3) raising money, and they pledge that money towards the overall cost of the senior center construction cost. And that is part of the pledge to the town when you go to town meeting, that we have a potential of raising, let's say, for argument's sake, $1 million. That takes that $16 million number and knocks it to 15. And then Long Meadow, which is a wealthy.
Can we hold off on the fundraising part, because
Let us go around the table.
I'd like us to go around with the straw poll. And I do think that what I have been told is that is not the way it will be presented in Ayer. So I don't want to go too far down that one. I'd like to continue around
Is there
the
a
table.
reason for that? What's the reason for that? Because every town I've worked in, that's what they did. Every time.
it is part of a discussion, but
Yeah.
unless that money is actually raised, which there's just a newly formed 501(c)(3), but there is not a large already fundraising amount already.
Well,
That
Wilbraham,
everything I have heard is that they would like it to be, the town manager's office would like it to be presented as a bond for the total cost. But
Yeah.
and that's neither here nor there. I want to keep going
they
around
always do.
our straw
But,
poll
but
here.
all
Yeah.
I'm saying, Katie, is that the bond needs to be for the full amount.
Right.
But in every town, they've raised, even in Millbury years ago, they raised $1 million.
But
So,
there will definitely be grants
but
and
part of the
definitely be
sales,
private fundraising.
yeah, part of the sales pitch in the end needs to note that there's an effort to lower that number below that bonding, but it
And
has to
that
be
is
the bond amount. Yeah.
that is already included in our existing presentations, but I agree with you, it needs to be stressed. Carolyn will go kind of around
Okay,
this way.
so, my group of friends, acquaintances, neighbors are all really supportive of this, and it includes, you know, people who have kids in the schools, as well as retired people, as well as, you know, people, young people who do not yet have children, and I don't know if they'll ever have children. But, you know, and it's my circle of friends, and a lot of them are active in the town, and they're the ones that go to town meeting. They're the ones that are out there making the decision. It's not, you know, it's not necessarily the naysayers that are gonna be the ones that show up. You know, this group that I'm talking about, they show up. And, you know, I just, you know, maybe it's a, you know, I'm in this really nice bubble, but it's a very supportive bubble, and I like it, and I'm not first to.
Okay, so that is a no, I don't want to.
No change.
Okay, all right, Ellen, that's a yes for you.
Yeah.
Right, okay. Did you want to add anything else to your other stuff?
No, I mean, I think, you know, I think there's red flags. I think we need to hear what people are saying and not just, you know, blow it off. But, I mean, there is a lot of support. Obviously, the town really supports the project. They hear what we've said about making it not too small and things like that. But, I know that particularly the Board of Selectmen is very concerned about the passing, and some members of Capitol. But, you know, it depends on what everybody thinks.
I think we really need to make it a point to say, this is the size we need, and this is the dollar value of it. And we've done everything that we can to bring the costs down and in line, and there's not much more we can cut. And as the people are going, well, then give us a concrete, put it back on them. What's a concrete? What do you want us to cut? And where do you want it to be cut from? And turn it around, flip it to them. Give us the idea. We're at where we're at. So if you think something could have been done differently, tell me, and I will bring it back to the committee, and we'll bring it up as a committee.
Okay.
You know, because if somebody else is looking at it going, well, this is too expensive, well, why can't we? Well, tell me exactly what you want. What do you want me to cut 2 square feet off of every room? Do you want a smaller staircase? Have them give us the ideas that where we're supposed to cut, what we're gonna cut.
Okay. It might delay the project. I would be more supportive, like we give them the message and not, we're listening to them, but I think if we had that much input, you know, because they don't know all the details, it might set the project back, you know, delay it, which will add up to additional costs.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's important for us to lead the project and not, I mean, you can get. I mean, I think we need more public input. I don't think we have had enough. That was a big, I think argument at the selectmen meeting the other night was that we're going too fast. I heard that a couple of times. But then again, you know, waiting will just increase the cost a bit, So you know, it's always a catch 22. Whenever you go to a public, you know, town meeting, right? You know, right? You do all this work, right? You don't know. You have no
Who's gonna
idea,
show up?
right?
Yeah.
Who's gonna show up? Who's gonna vote? And you've done all this work, and if there's a no vote, then what do, right? You have. So what I'm saying is that we want to ensure, we want to be kind of like 99.9% sure that it's gonna pass. Well, how do we do that? Do we wait? Do we get more public input? Do we get more of the message out? I know in my group, like Carolyn, there is a lot of positive feedback, but there's rumblings of the cost. People are afraid that their taxes are gonna go up with many different things, right? And before you know it, you know, they're paying like $1,000 more per year, right, on their taxes. It's a big unknown.
I agree with Ellen that right now at the 16.6, there's a lot of red flags, and even from the select board, we need to, I think we need to show an effort to reduce the cost. And try to find a way. We've been talking about obtaining other funds. That's something obviously to show, which I know we've been doing. But that effort has to be shown. And, you know, right now, I kind of think of it as you know, it's a service for the town. We're at this is the maximum, the ideal level of service. Is there anything that's more of a want than a need? Anything we can reduce a bit? Are there some ways we can save some costs? I think we should really look at it close. And then obviously, you know, at least we can report back to the select board if there were something, we reduce them and, you know, it looks really good. And I think at this point, you know, it's a sell job. It's gotta go to town meeting for a 2/3 vote. It's gotta go to the ballot box, which who knows what could happen there. So I think when you get back to like, you gotta be pretty sure this is gonna pass, you know, it kind of gets to that. Or is like, do we want to have a center with a lower level of service than what we really wanted? Probably on top of not having it at all. And going back to the drawing board. I think one way for some more outreach would be to visit some more of the boards in town, because those are the most people involved. So maybe going to the planning board, CPC, I know we've been to FinCom. But maybe going to some of those other boards, explaining where we're at and try to garner support from them as well. And they talk a lot in the community. So, you know, maybe there's some other boards just to give some outreach to, as a way to get some more input from them, see how they, you know, feel from the cost and
So we're just, you know, we're teed up for the CPC, I think December 4th or their first week. You know, in terms of getting funding, especially for the outdoor portion. You know, pickleball courts and, you know, whatever, maybe a landscape, you know, whatever outdoor recreational activities you know, they can legitimately fund.
Yeah, and we kind of did it with stormwater too, but if if you can go to town meeting, you have support of other boards on the article as well, that's gonna go a long way. So I mean, I think if you can, you know, work with those other boards that what might have a skin in this type of thing. That's a good activity to do. That's pretty much all I had.
Linda,
So I think we should stay on track with the size of building we have and maybe look at some of the add-ons. Continue our public outreach, maybe change our message up a little bit. And what's the tax difference between 14.5 and 16.5? I don't know that off the top of my head. I mean, you know, millions of dollars, when you're talking to people about millions of dollars, is a lot of money. But it's like a mortgage, a 500,000 and 550,000, the payment's not much different. So what is the tax, you know, difference if it's, you know, 16.5, 14.5? I think we should go ahead with the size, look at the add-ons. I think the messaging about if we don't, you know, the things people wish they had done differently made the building bigger. If, you know, I don't want to really, you know, I don't know what the quality of the materials are using, but if if there's some way to cut in that area, but I'd like to say, stay with the building as is. And then look at the add-ons. If we continue to get messaging, this is gonna be too much, then I think we should really go back. But I think we should do more public outreach and get more input before. You know, I think we should be looking at some of the things we could cut, but I think we should stay with our message and just go out a few more times as more public outreach, see where we're at there and then regroup.
Well, and to your point, Linda, Kurt, the chair of the capital planning committee, kind of looked at what the cost difference was.
That's because we passed this out.
There
I
you
don't know
go.
if this committee has even seen this. All right, well,
So-
They have to
in-depth,
be.
in-depth. We haven't gone through it as a committee step by step.
So one of his points was that, the cost difference on a 30-year bond. Or between 16.6 and 14.5, or, you know, whatever. It's negligible on a, but from a public relations standpoint, you know, to Dan's point, it sounds better. You know, because you are making it. That is. My sense of it is that we have not been profligate in our choices. That is, each choice in terms of John's building design and Katie's operational design and have been thoughtful and this is what the community would benefit from. And in order to run the center in a kind of productive and efficient manner, you know, these are the kinds of things you need to be able to do the daily work that should be done. That being said, I understand that from the public relations, for whatever reason, 14.2 got stuck in someone's head. And, you know, they think that we raised the cost by $2.5 million. And that kind of misinformation, I mean, my instincts are, it's misinformation, don't believe the untruth. As a matter of public relations, well, you know, you can't overcome that kind of bias. So.
And we know there's gonna be tax increases every year, so, you know, this year it's, you know, there's a stormwater utilities, the new senior set, but every year we're gonna have something, you know. It's going to be something every year, it's gonna raise our taxes.
Taxes are going up.
No, I know, so it's like, okay, let's wait we won't do it this year, we'll wait next year, oh, guess what, next year, this is gonna rate. It's never going to change, it's always going to be an increase, it's what increase do you want if. You know, you're gonna wait 5 years, 6 years, oh, well, we have to build a new school. We're just never going to get the center up and running if. So
Yeah.
again, I think we have to put the message out there,
That
why
came-
we need to do it now.
Came up in capital too, with what debts are coming off the books,
Yeah.
what are coming on, you know,
Yeah.
where are we on the wave? Like, if we can get that information from Barbara to sort
Yeah.
of show too, would be helpful, I think.
And I think that was part of why this was a good timing because of that. With the debt coming off the table, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, I think Robert kind of had made a conscious choice that after the fire station comes off and before the school goes on, you know, there's a window here where the senior center is the next building in line.
Mhm.
Because if we wait 3 years, now you're really butting up against
Yes.
potential school and.
Yeah,
Do you want to go first and I go last, or do you want to just keep on going, Brent?
I have a lot.
Okay,
So, first of all, I had no idea anyone thought this was the Taj Mahal or any other building, unless they'd been to the Taj Mahal. They certainly would recognize this is not the Taj Mahal. This is a steel frame building that's designed to be a senior center, not a Taj Mahal. It has it's fitted with the right materials, it's got the right ceiling, it's got all the right components to be a quality building. I'm very opposed to the fact that people think we should not be equal to our neighbors. I think that's totally off thought of residents of the town of Ayer. But maybe a few residents of the town of Ayer will think that way. I don't think that way, and I've never thought that way when I moved to the town of Ayer. That Harvard, Groton, or anybody else is better than we are and deserve more. I think this town is in a position today to look to build a quality product, and nothing short of a quality product. And I'm surprised, just 2 weeks ago, I thought we pretty much as a group had said, you know, it's gonna be this size building. We're not going back and changing the size of the building. It's like 2 weeks ago. The work we've done as a committee has been outstanding. I would venture to say there's never been a committee that's put this much time into a project to get this far. There's a risk that we could lose. There's no question about it. Everyone knows we have to do more outreach. Everyone knows that the price is high. These are all facts that we know. The point of the matter is, if that's the right size building, if it lands on the right piece of property, that's what it's worth. We cannot control the fact that it's has to be a big learning experience to me. I knew it had to be prevailing wage. I knew it was 30% more, but I never knew it could be this much more than regular open shop construction that the private sector was building. It's amazing the difference. So in my past life, now it's back, I would take these numbers and I would find a way to get that done for less. But I don't even know if I can do that under the state process because of the complexity of the bidding, the whole requirement of what has to be done. I'm way out of our control. The long and short of, I've talked a lot about this with other people as well, and in my bubble, it's not a problem. So I'm glad to be in my bubble. Okay, yep. So three of us, four of us at least at this table are in a category of people that agree that the project is a good, and we can afford it. There's got to be a small group in town that cannot afford it. And I look at that, I'm also on the Ayer Affordable Housing Committee. I did make a presentation to them, and as part of our meeting last week, I was on the agenda and I made a presentation to them and got, nice feedback. Interesting enough, one of the members of that group is on the capital planning who was not present tonight. James, so I'll leave the name on. The long and short of it is that we have done an amazing thing in a feasibility study. People don't realize there's risk in everything we do because we're trying to go to a town meeting without bona fide bid documents and a real number. This town has to take a leap of faith that we can do it before we have drawings, before we have bid documents, before we have real numbers. So we're asking an architect to give us budgets from other buildings, which we did. We escalated those numbers to what we think are close to today's market. They could change again. By the same token, if we had bought a hazardous waste piece of land on West Main Street for $800,000, we would have saved 5 years of escalation and COVID. But the town wouldn't buy that piece of land because it was polluted. 800,000, we're losing 800,000 every 6 months now with construction. It's fascinating. So the municipal process is a difficult, complicated process. It requires all these steps. A developer would look at this and say, you know what, we got a way to figure this out. We don't have that golden opportunity because it's regulated by so many things beyond our control. I believe the town is in a position financially, and if people are strong enough to believe in something, they'll take a leap of faith and say, you know what, we're gonna give you that bond, and you guys go out and prove that you can do it for less than that. The cuts that Linda referred to, they're small money, that could be like 500,000, that's not gonna make a difference. Those options and whatnot. I think the real question that came up tonight, I don't want to get to capital, go to that. So my belief is that we put a lot of time in. We're not gonna change much. If we change a few feet here and there, it might make a difference, it might not. But as we go along through the process, we need the town to support the process. And they're basically taking a leap of faith, because we still don't really know what's gonna actually gonna cost when you get right down to it. So your contention that it's 16.6 and that we have a real number is based on a feasibility study. It's not based on bidding. So keep that in mind, but to the extent that John has got a set of finishes that we saw in real time, you saw them. You stood and separated with me and I said, this is great. You said, not good. Because it had vinyl base instead of maple. It had aluminum frame windows instead of beautiful wood frames or whatever they might be. It didn't have the trim, it didn't have the ceiling features. So, point is that we've decided as a group, that, and you in particular, that's the quality finishes that we think we deserve in the town of Ed. But there's no question in my mind that working with John, if John would be willing to take a step back on the finishes, we might save a few bucks along the way. But we haven't even got to that point. We haven't got to the hard work of looking at the specifications, of getting through the site plan approval, getting through all these pieces. It's a major leap of faith in any circumstance. So if you guys can if we can get this through any town meeting, doesn't matter when the town meeting is, without those real numbers, town is basically saying, we support the idea. We think you can get it done. And that's basically where we are. I don't think we can get into the nitty gritty of the costs of $250 a year or $350 a year. We need people to say, you can do it. And I'm a firm believer that the town is growing and the financial base of the town is so solid. So in essence, we were actually in better shape than Groton. They failed an override. They have a tax problem. We don't have it. Harvard doesn't have a tax base like we have. Nobody has a tax base like we have, the industrialists. So we can afford it because we have a great tax base. We only have to overcome a few negative thoughts from people who might be used to something different. This is a step into the future in a higher grade. I think the town of here deserves it. That's my opinion.
And I'm not, I mean, to your point, I'm not, I mean, I haven't thought through this. But would it resonate, your point about, because it's a public building project and there are constraints and state regulations
Yeah.
about how much you have to
Oh,
pay,
yeah,
and who you have to hire and all the rest of it. That some of the reason it is 16.6 is beyond our control.
Oh,
That
yeah.
is,
Totally.
we're not, that is, we understand that that's what you would think of as too much for a building like this. But some portion of that cost is tied up with the rules and regulations that we have to live by and that we can't prevent from occurring. But would that resonate with people, or is it just talking to myself?
So I think that transitions well into, I was gonna state my,
Oh, I'm sorry.
my position
Yeah,
as
good.
well, which is, I do think this is the building that we need. I mean, we've been thoughtful about it. You know, are there changes that could be made? Obviously, there's always changes that could be made, but I do think that more public outreach is needed before I would feel comfortable making a decision to switch gears. We may get to that place. I don't think that we're there yet, because we have had a series of small one-on-one interactions for our smaller things. We've had one big public forum. I would like to see us go through our December public outreach and reevaluate. Because if we decide we need to reevaluate and come up with different plans, we're not gonna make a February special town meeting. The select board may not grant us a February special town meeting, in which case we're adding potentially up to $700,000 to the cost. So we're all gonna have to have that discussion again, no matter what. So that would be, my concern is, do we have enough public input to make that? Because I hear people talk and I maybe have a different perspective as the director down here. I hear people sit about everything, all of the world's problems. Worry. But then they turn around and their actions don't necessarily reflect that worry. And so what I'm having trouble with, based on the amount of public input we've done to date, is how to differentiate. Oh, gosh, that's a big number versus I'm going to vote no. And I don't feel like I have enough of that input yet. What is sentiment versus indicator of voter activity? So I would like to use this as an opportunity. I do think there's a set of people who you guys have identified your bubble. I'm not singling any of you out. You've identified your bubble of folks who can financially afford this. Then we have a set of people who are living at Pond Street and Pleasant Street, who are truly low-income seniors, whom this will have zero financial implication for. They will use this. This will do nothing to their rents. This is a free service to them for their town. So what we're talking about then are the groups of individuals in the middle. Let's call them low to moderate income, but that are living independently in their home. I'd really like to use this as an opportunity for the senior center to say, we are here for you. If you are living independently in your home and feeling a budget crunch to the point where something that could really help you, like a new senior center, you're on the verge of not being able to afford it, please come see us. Because we offer some very valuable financial consulting, some financial assistance to people, to help people look through their budgets, see if there are ways to economize, to help them make sure that you're getting a water and sewer abatement, that you're getting low-cost phones if you qualify for those, that you are making sure that maybe you qualify for food assistance, all of those things. We can help people. We use AARP has a Fit After 50 financial program that we use. So there are options and opportunities available. So I would really encourage, and this is said for the public as much as for the people around the table here. If you hear from those people who are concerned about the cost relative to their being able to afford it, please come talk to us, because there are things we can do to help you. And the senior tax work-off program as another, in addition to our financial assistance, the senior tax work-off program is not fully utilized. So we have over $40,000 in a tax abatement, and there are at least 5 more spots that are available, and that's giving people up to $2,000 tax credit for their service to the town. Instead of, and the average tax bill is $5,500. So you're almost giving older adults half off their tax bill. And so that is a significant discount. So again, if folks are worried for that reason, I really would encourage them to come to the senior center to learn more.
I mean, that's a good point, because a rational argument could be made that because the senior center is larger and open more often or often, you would have more opportunity. So somebody in town could work part-time at the senior center and more than cover, volunteer at the senior, and then more than
Yes.
cover the
Mhm.
increase in their taxes.
Easy,
Easy.
10 times, let's say, 10, or 8 times.
Yeah.
So another argument is, most town meetings, and I raised this the other night at the select board meeting, is that most everything gets voted yes, right? It passes. And if you have a great presentation, you spend the time, maybe with a kind of like a video that you mentioned, like kind of like, here's what we have now, here's what it could be. We have like people like, in other senior centers saying what they have, could have.
Yeah.
Right, it's this positive vibe that gets across to the majority of people there at town meeting. And of course they would vote yes, right? Even
You're not gonna change-
Strings in the background.
you're not gonna change their mind. on
little
the-
orchestra music.
But you're not gonna change their mind on it.
Well, no,
You're gonna come in either wanting to support it or.
Well,
Very hard
I-
to say so.
No, sometimes
agree,
people come
Bonnie.
in, though some people come in with a no,
Yeah.
and they change their mind right on the floor.
yeah, I agree with Bonnie. I mean, what I find at town meeting is when groups make presentations about all the work they've done and how they've tried to make it fair, I mean, I just felt this way with the stormwater thing, it was a great effort to try to make it
Yes, what's the work?
a fair deal. And when you see that in your fellow citizens, it gives you faith in the system, and it helps you say yes, because about the work you put into it.
I think one of the things that people forget in the town, and this is somewhat related to taxes, is that our tax rate is way lower than our joint towns already. It's way lower. We pay taxes, the other towns are 10, 15,000, 20,000 in taxes. We're in the 5, 6, 7, whatever it is, 4 to 6,000, 7,000, whatever it is. So we're already at a base that's lower than surrounding towns. People come here for that reason. They buy homes in Ayer for that reason. So they're not really uptight if the taxes go up a little bit in a lot of cases. I'm talking about people who never attend town meeting, who are happy with the way town government runs, because it show it if they're comfortable. They come in, they're willing to spend a lot of money to buy a home in our town. They've done the research, they know the rates are stable, they like the DPW, they see the streets being fixed, and they support the schools. And in general, they want the town to keep going and to do a good job.
And a lot of those, though, are people who don't have children in our schools.
They will.
Well, they may or they may not, I mean,
Yeah.
Pingree Hill is full of retired people,
They don't come to town meeting. It's fascinating.
They're happy with their taxes.
They're happy with the taxes.
Pleasant Street is full of young families with young children, so further down.
So our straw poll has six stay the courses, 2 start looking at changes, and 1 that I was sort of in between about. I think I couldn't decide. You had.
Me?
Yes.
Oh, no, stay on course.
Okay, all right. So So my suggestion would be that we keep this on our radar and we can begin thinking as a committee individually, you know, what if the public input sessions in December are not as favorable as we would like? What would we come back to? How would we discuss it? How would we approach it? Because I think we all would agree, we want to see a senior center pass. We want to see a new senior center built. So, can we any other thoughts?
I mean, I'm trying to get a sense of what number would be more palatable. And I guess you can't, you know, affordability is in the eyes of the beholder, as Robert said. But I think to Dan's point, how do we kind of convey that we have not been profit, that we are looking at ways to save money?
Sure.
And either present that in some more concrete way. I don't know whether in terms of some of the add-ons or whatever that word is. But even a little bit, you know, we shaved, you know, 200 here and 600 there. So now it's, instead of 16.6, it's 15.9 or whatever the number is.
Right, monetarily, it's no up a perception.
That's right.
Perception.
That's right. That is, it shows that we're acting in good faith to address their concerns, even if it's not a substantive change to the direction of the project. And again, not to toss that out there now, but just to kind of be thinking to ourselves, well, if you made this, that, and the other change, just to kind of let people feel like, and it's legitimate, you know, to some people, if you say, well, we just saved you $750,000, they're gonna say,
We're gonna spend the money on the building, because you're conceptually thinking that we're saving them money. But the point is that we still don't have the numbers.
no, I
Well,
understand.
We're
but-
conceptually taking a few things out of the building that we think will save something in the cost of the building.
Right.
We can't prove to them up front that we've actually done that. Listen, we take the roof off the walking path, that's $300. We can say. We don't need the roof.
Yeah.
But that's,
Or we don't need the second floor.
you know, you gotta build a second.
Gotta have the second
Yeah, that's
floor.
it.
No, I'm being facetious.
Well, you
Right,
could,
okay. No, I'm
you
being
could get rid of the second floor.
Sorry, John.
Your mechanical room would move down one flight. That's a big decision. That's a big decision. Then you got an 8,000 square foot building,
So,
you know.
so what I would suggest for my part in that is I would like to meet with Alicia again in the next couple of days. And really go over with a fine tooth comb when the deadlines are for each of these grants and what the requirements are. Some of them are shovel-ready designs, some of them are approved town meetings, some of them are other things. So let me really hone in on that with her so that we can get an idea of the timeline of grants and the criteria for them to see if any of those things before the meeting where we have to bond for the regular amount, whether any of those can feel more certain to help add to that perception of bringing the cost down. So I will do that before we meet next. On that note, or as anything else for that, actually, I didn't want to put some before.
Just one quick thing, in terms of the ad alternates, you know, which I had mentioned, the walking thing. I don't think that the multi-purpose room partition is really expendable. Because we really need that to separate the room in order to be able to use it for exercise as well as for lunch.
Yeah.
So I don't think that that's something that we can really do without.
Really
But,
need a
I mean,
local company to donate.
Well, I mean, if somebody picked up the, you know, donated by, you know,
How much is it, you know?
100,000.
I think, John,
The
is
person
this?
who used a non-powered partition in a room that size
Yes.
for years, I will tell you, whatever the cost difference is, it's worth it because when you have seniors volunteering in the building and you want them to be able to be your lunch volunteers, helping to set up, or your program volunteers, helping reset up rooms, they are not able to move those big panels, and you have to use force to sort of go over a little hump to lock one into the other. And I was the only person in the building that could actually operate those, and I'm a few years older than I was then. And so I would say it's worth it in order to make it really usable. And I would agree that first, I would say, I don't think we need to have this discussion at this point, but I would also agree that it's a necessary one, but
I think the pickleballs. Yeah, she. I'm
What?
not kidding.
Yeah.
I always say CPA probably.
right.
Yeah.
I
But we
think,
don't have to.
Isn't that the big hit?
Funded.
Yeah, it's on here,
If we're talking
95.
about this, I was kind
Well, that's gonna get paid for by CPC, so that's not.
of, I was kind
I mean, my thought is, I think, I don't know if I mentioned to this group that, I talked to the, recreation director, he runs the country club where the pickleball courts in Groton are located. And he said that they had 1,800 people signed up, they have 1,400 people using them regularly. And they've got 38 or 40 residents of Ayer who use them, and they've got, I think, 6 pickleball courts that are going nonstop. all the
My
time.
question a while ago, a few meetings ago, when Katie Weaver, do we have enough pickleball courts?
I don't think we do.
I would take the roof off and put more pickleball courts.
Yeah,
That's,
but that's, again, that comes down to that discussion when we go on December 4th to meet with CPC is, you know, are you interested in funding this? What is the criteria for that? You know, we really think 4 would be better than 2. You know, is that something that's within the reach of that fund? So I think we can certainly talk about, and that also adds to the perception of bringing the cost down, because you're taking something out of the alternative and you're funding it by an outside source. And that's one that you can get sort of a pledge for. The $1 million of the 1.3 is pretty much a given from CDBG if we go for it this year. It's 1.3 if we go for it next year, but that one's pretty much a given. The almost 200,000, I'd be willing to say that 125 of that is a given. 200 of it is possible, you know, so we can really go through some of these alternate things and say, okay, so if we were able to get these sources of funding that we think we can get, I can have Barbara rerun the numbers for what that would be. I don't think it will be as big of a big change in the average payment as one would expect, but I do think in terms of perception and in terms of being collaborative and open to input, I think it would be impactful.
Also, just as a point, it's very easy to build pickleball courts later. It doesn't affect the structure of the building as long as we allow space for it. You can easily, you know, what we did in Long Meadow is that we had 2 in the package. Right towards the end of the project, we added 2 more to that court setup. So they ended up with 4 courts outside. But it was very easy to add because we discovered at the end we had enough money left over from our contingency to go ahead and put in the 2 courts. Otherwise, there would have just been 2. Also, there we have 7 courts total, and they are like your local country club, maxed all the time. They want lights on the ones outside now because they want to play at night. So they're very good, but that's a very easy add element. Even 3 years from now, it doesn't affect the overall building and its operation. So you could start out with no pickleball courts and add them in later as a gesture. They're not hard to add. So just a thought.
And John, you said that was Long Meadow?
Yeah, we have
Okay.
a total now of 7 in Long Meadow.
I see it, I see a different connection here. I see 2 pickleball courts at the senior center and the Park and Recreation Department steps up and build pickleball courts in town. That's, to me, it's not senior center question. It's, we have some for people who use the center. But the Park and Rec is the one that really needs to get good going. Pickleball is a big deal in town. Make a commitment on it.
I think our public outreach going forward, we should stay with the number we have And we should be very solid how we got to that number. Instead of people say, or instead of saying, well, we could cut this, I think we should be solid why we came to this number. You know, we looked at all these other things, we could cut costs, cut the size, but we realized this is the number we came at, and I think we should be solid and sell the message why we came to that number. The timing's right, you know, the debt in town, whatever it's called, it's right, the correct time to do it. If we wait, I think we should be very solid on that number before we start, well, maybe we can take this on that. I think we should be solid. This is a building, you know, we've reviewed, and this is why we got here, and this is, you know, why we should move forward with it. And then if we get a lot of pushback, then after the next month or so, then I think we need to revisit it. But I think if we're solid in our approach and the information we're giving out, I think it may be received differently.
I agree, I agree.
So for the sake of time, I wanna transition us to a budget overview.
You've only slightly one updated on the way we finished that.
Okay,
In capital planning.
was there anything specific about capital planning or select board that we wanted to discuss it?
I think in terms of the timeline and the efficacy from our purposes of a special town meeting versus April, you know, the regular town meeting at the end of April, and to what, how do we, from my view, I think the project stands a better chance at a special town meeting. And I think how that meeting runs would allow the public to have a better understanding of the project, as opposed to being one of 30 warrant articles at a regular town meeting. So my view is that the special town meeting is preferable, although some members of the select board were ambivalent about that, or, you know, kind of have reservations as to whether or not a special town meeting was necessary or warranted.
If you want it to pass, you want to do a special town meeting. It gets very complicated at the general town meeting. A lot of stuff comes up, a lot of debate. It can take one or two people to get up and who have nothing to do with the senior center and derail the whole thing. That's what our experience has been in the past. When you do a special town meeting, the people that come out are the people either they're for it or against it, but they have a reason to be there. General town meetings, you fill it with a lot of people who are going to complicate the whole process. If you want it to pass, try and get a special town meeting.
I think that's. I gotta go.
Okay, there were a couple of questions about what's the latest that a special town meeting could be, because we were talking about February. And one person was saying, is that the latest, and still not pick up the extra 600, 700,000? I mean, can it be in March, or would that?
Well,
I'm gonna.
can I just,
None, hold on.
yeah,
So-
okay, fine.
Well, I was just gonna say, I was gonna put that question to John because it was really based on the timeline needed for him to do the next two phases of drawings, get the bidding out, and then the time to enclose the building. So,
Yeah.
John, what would you say if we're trying to stay at the current cost estimate of 16.6 million without going to the next level of escalation? When is the last time that you would feel comfortable that we can have a special town meeting and still make that schedule?
There's a couple of issues. One is not necessarily escalation. The one issue that's really important is to get this thing bid in September at the latest, because we want to get in the ground, get the steel up, and get the building enclosed before winter conditions. So a couple things happen. One is if we delay, there is escalation, especially if it goes into the next spring. Also, by not getting it enclosed before winter, we get another escalation of heating, problems with concrete, pouring concrete in the winter, working in the winter conditions, and then you know, and there's a lot of delays revolving around that in this public bid process. So what I was trying to do was to get probably a mid-February meeting, which would give the time to get the funding in place so that the expensive part of the drawings be done probably by probably July at the latest, through all the machinations that we need to go through. So that'd be set for bidding. And we need 8 weeks for bidding in the public bid. We could speed it up to 6, but whenever we rush it, we don't get the numbers we always like. So we allow 8 weeks. And at the latest, I'd like to see a contractor on board the mid to late October at the very latest, but preferably late September. And that would give because steel is fast and enclosure is what it's all about. So that was, there's 2 factors. One is if you get to the spring, you have escalation. If you don't get the building enclosed by winter conditions, you've got another cost factor that contractors add on to the project. So that's just my thoughts. Dan V might have some thoughts too.
So,
No, that's good. Yeah.
so you need to, I mean, ideally you would want it out to bid by the last week in June, first week in July.
No.
No, a little later than that. No.
The drawings don't look that close.
And
But you need 8 weeks, and he said that they'd be done by September.
You know, he said
8
the drawings-
weeks. 8
You
weeks.
said the bidding would take 8 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, 2 weeks for advertising and 4 weeks for subs and 2 weeks for the general.
Right, so if you want to start
August.
construction in September,
Well, no, early, the first week of October, the last week of September, which
I
means
see.
we'd be bidding at late July, early August.
Okay.
Yeah,
Right.
the contractor, because once the contract is awarded, there's no real delay in time. We want that guy mobilizing within 2 weeks because the contract is in the spec, so there's no negotiation of the contract. So
So
that's quickly.
I'd like to comment on the select board meeting last night. And I don't think there's any way they're gonna let us go to a February town meeting. Said that at the last meeting before we went to the select board meeting. They just don't have it in front. They made a comment that we're rushing and we tried to offset that comment, but it didn't happen. They made a comment that they supported the project, but they never told us how they could support it. And what they could give us, the resources to help support it. Right? We stood there. They said we support it, we think it's great. They never told us how to get help with grants. They never added an emphasis saying the town administrator will help you through this. They never volunteered any information to us as a group. There's an expectation that we're supposed to be experts on grants or experts on all these other pieces. So they can say they support it all they want, but they need to come in and tell us what support they're gonna provide. Based on what I heard, I don't think they're gonna, I think we're gonna go back in December, they're gonna say, we still think you're rushing it. We still think you're not gonna make, so. My theory on this, I agree 100% on the special town meeting. I just want to do it in a different framework. I want the special town meeting to be within a day of the regular town meeting. So you start, we've done this before, you can have a special very close to a regular. So the regular is the night before, the next day is the special. You adjourn the regular, go to the special. And if you can't finish the regular in one night, you come back the following night, it could be 2 or 3 nights. So it ends up being a special within a day or so of the regular. That's how,
The regular is in April, so that, isn't that too late?
So
It's not gonna be too late, because there's never gonna be a too late. If they don't agree to work with us, they're gonna have to face up to the fact that there's escalation, and they understand that. I don't think I'm not sure that we can say, go in with leverage and say, hey, it's gonna cost you more in the future. It's just gonna scare people. They don't wanna hear that. I think it's a different kind of leverage.
But what I hear the concern from the folks who are concerned about it is that people are concerned about 16.6. So if we go the route, if the select board does not grant us
They're not going.
a special town meeting in February, right, because they are the ones to call it. Then I don't see how we cannot bring 16.6 million to an end of April meeting. That won't be the cost. It will be 17.4, or we will be bringing a different building. But that's lots of work back on Catlin to bring a different building by April. Do you see what I'm saying? So
We're not gonna get it. That's-
Be careful about those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. Could be 20.
Until the schematics are done, we need to get a true hard cost estimate from that. Right now, we're kind of working within, we're not working with numbers that are hard on the building. And we could very well, our cost estimator could certainly lead us down certain paths that might help us in the process. And we're also, we're using a crystal ball for escalation. We're hoping escalation will be more than what we said. There's always a chance it might be less. I don't know where this country's going. It's pretty crazy out there. I know that inflation as an increasing element is not increasing at the same rate it was 2 years ago, but it has been increasing at a rate that my cost estimator is nervous about. But it could be 4%, not 10%.
But either way, we cannot take 16.6 if we don't make this construction cycle with a February meeting, which we may not. Then I think it needs to be pointed out that by not going on that schedule, you are accepting that there will be escalation at some value and that escalation is going to have to be figured out. And let's keep in mind that, we have our budget, which we haven't gotten to yet, but we have enough money in our current budget to cover the next level of design. We don't have, do you see what I'm saying? So by not following this timeline, I just hope everyone understands, and I'm not saying everyone, but everyone broader understands that changes several different factors because we don't have the funds to go all the way to final design before we can go to town meeting. So there's always going to be a place where we have to pick a 16.6 or a 17.4 number, and we're gonna have to go and ask for that amount. And then we'll hopefully get it, and then we're going to have to modify specs as we go to stay at that number.
Right,
So-
but that is how I think we made a conscious choice that was the path that we would follow.
Mhm.
That is, that we would go to one meeting, attempting to get it all at one time, and we wouldn't break it up into multiple town meetings. To get the design dollars ahead of time and then get the construction dollars later. So that's a choice that we made. I forget when we made it, but I think I remember, kind of consciously saying, okay, this
We were
is.
coached in it.
What's that?
We were coached into that.
Yes,
It's a
yes.
better description of what.
Yeah. And, so all I would say to that point is that, yes, I understand that, and that is the risk that, I consciously accepted when I kind of agree that is the path that we have to follow.
I take a slightly different angle on the escalation, and John can agree or disagree. But the challenge to me is to present to the town a number, either 16.6 million. Then, as I said before, it's a leap of faith. No matter what we do or what that town meeting does, it's a leap of faith. They say you got $16.6 million. Figure out how to do it for $16.6 million. Forget the escalation. If you have to reduce the building a little bit. If you have to come up with a better angle, if we have to get another way to do it, but we're not gonna go in there and say, well, if you don't vote for it, it's gonna cost you more.
No.
I hate that.
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying we have determined that this is the building that we need. This building costs 16.6 million on this timeline. If you say, if we accept the direction of the select board, you have to, but I don't think I in good faith can say, all right, I'll bring it in April for 16.6 million without also saying, hey, guys, we will not be bringing the same building. That will not be the end result unless all factors go in our favor between now and then for building and it somehow becomes less expensive. We won't be able to build this building in the next, in 2027 for 16.6 million. I just think people need to know that that is the outcome of that.
Well, how about if while we're doing our December outreach, we get everybody that comes to the meeting, call the Board of Selectmen and let them know that you want to see a special town meeting for this called in February. And
You had to be there last night to see it. I mean, you were there. They're not gonna-
I think the surprising thing is, and don't get me wrong, and I'm not criticizing, is that it's two people that made decisions.
Yeah.
Which is, in my personal opinion, it seems a little odd. So I agree with that. I think that, we need to get more clarification from the select board and what their thinking is. I heard two messages. I heard that we're moving too fast. We need more public input. And a February special town meeting is a little, or can't be, not that it can't be done, but they were buying for the other option. And they were buying for the other option. I heard, because they want it to pass. So in their minds, that's how they're thinking.
I
And
heard one select board member say that. That is not really what I heard the other select board member say.
so, okay, so
Then
maybe
what-
we need to kind of have more conversation with the select board in different ways.
But based on what John just clearly enunciated, if it is indeed the case that the select board, all of them, each of them individually want it to pass, and that is what I heard. I mean, John clearly just said, one of the key points of getting it to pass is to have a special town meeting. That is, and he's obviously been through the process, many times, that a special town meeting increases significantly the likelihood of passage.
I don't think there's any question about the special town meeting, simply the timing. They delineated pretty clearly the fact that and this is what happens. They don't want to meet in December, late in the month. They pretty much said capital planning is got a way of meeting. The setup of the meetings and other committees in town that we have to go through may or may not ever get us to a February town meeting. We have to go back to finance, we're gonna probably go back to capital planning. And their schedules are gonna may not line up at all. They were basically pointing that out to us, what Janice was pointing out to us.
Yeah.
The other thing that happened, and I have to be very careful. The town administrator did not opine on schedule either. He basically just went ahead and followed the same language of discussion as the board of selectmen. So he never stood there and said, I think it's better to get to a February town meeting. We never saw a step by anybody last night indicating that we'll be getting a meeting in February. So I just think they're gonna,
Well, there's also a select person that wasn't there.
right,
And, there's this whole idea of groupthink. The first person says something and everybody sort of, gets on board and,
how do you get rid of that concept that they think we're going too fast when we know we're not? How do you get rid of that? What's the answer to that?
I think part of it was they felt that because of the holidays and people were not gonna be focused on it
Right.
until sometime after January, and they didn't feel that we had enough time to just get enough support from the community that we would have people show up and vote positive.
I agree.
So I think they feel like they're trying to help us.
Yeah, you could, if you succumb to what the select board would like to do, we would just have to adjust our abilities to figure out how to move the actual drawings quicker. And it would take some coordination with my engineers. But a couple of things that I think are really important, a lot of the things that we normally have to work through as designers, it's already been accomplished by DPW and this group, the survey, the borings, the 21E, heritage.
Assessment.
Those are all really important. And that, I think we would just have to figure out a way to move this quick enough to get ourselves enclosed by winter if it's going to be an April town meeting, or even March.
Maybe you
In
could do
March.
March.
I think we could probably live with March. We just have to, you know, my Dan Arts is going to have to work harder, you know. But, you know, I would say that let us not push the select board into something they really don't want to do. And if it's March or early April, we'll just have, but it should be a special town meeting and we'll just have to deal with it. And it does give you a little bit more time for Katie and the crew to sell it to folks.
Yeah. I
Thank
think
you
that,
for offering that, John.
yeah, I think they would like to see some kind of compromise that we'd be willing to, you know, offer some space.
Well, March is halfway between February and April.
There we go, that's a compromise. Okay,
It's just a few weeks.
so,
Cut the baby in half, you know.
all right, so I think we have a clear direction with that. Anyone have other input they want to add on the select board or capital planning?
I do.
Okay,
I always have something.
all right.
Katie did an exemplary job tonight at the capital plan. I thought it was really good.
Mhm.
I thought the briefness of it. I thought we could have used another half an hour, fortunately.
Oh, yeah.
We were stuck with time, but your presentation was good, it's very clear. I thought they were engaged and whatever we wanted to hear. What I thought. The most interesting thing that happened was right at the end of the meeting, after I passed out this list of numbers and one of the gentlemen on the committee looked at this and it became evident to him that there's a large portion of these numbers that don't change when the building changes. For instance, all the site development costs are going to stay the same. You know, there's many basic costs that don't change a lot as you reduce the size of the building. So he did some quick math and said, you know, let's say if you reduce the size of the building, yeah, you may be able to save a couple of $1 million if you change, you know, this category over here. You're not going to save it all the way across the board. And I thought that was a good, something for us to think about. And then we kind of get into the grants and what we're doing. It was excellent. We just can't do any better.
And that was a great meeting, so
Yeah.
a great.
That's all I.
All right. So there's a lot of other documents in our packet. I just want to be respectful of everybody's time because I know we started later tonight. We're already a little over 2 hours for our meeting. I wanted to point out this timeline that Dan and Bonnie worked on.
I'm giving you credit.
We started, Bonnie took it to the next level. How about that? There we go. So I just wanted to have, if everyone could take a look at this before our next meeting and give us a sense, actually you can email Bonnie directly, and give a sense of if this is a great example of a project plan, the different types of items. So like the environmental things are related in green, other site related things are in blue. We've got public outreach elements in green. And so to see if this is something that you like, that resonates, if there's improvements. This is something that Bonnie will make updates to after each of our meetings with new tasks and updates to the timeline. And I also think this document goes a long way towards showing we are organized, we do have a plan. We're not rushing it. This is, you know, something that we've really given thought of how to go the whole distance. So, and Bonnie, did you want to go through any parts of it in more detail?
Yeah, just one thing, I mean, yeah, I think this is very simplistic, but I think adding contingencies, right, would be important. So like, what if, you know, because you know, down here I have like February town meeting, right? And it sort of follows a February special town meeting. Contingency upon not having, you know, that meeting in April or a regular town meeting, right? So it's like, you know, adding in those kind of things in the timeline. So we kind of have an idea of what changes or get what gets modified. If we're not on this timeline.
I agree. I don't know if PowerPoint will let you make, is this a chart?
It will probably have the two, it will probably have two timelines.
Well, I was just thinking we might be able to combine public outreach is taking up
A
half
lot.
the paper, so
Right.
maybe we can work on how to streamline that piece.
Yep.
And then I don't know if, I think you said this is in PowerPoint, the PowerPoint might let you, there's a lot, it's lovely visually to look at it with all the space between the lines, but I think we might be able to compress it
Yeah,
a little
definitely.
further that way.
yep, yeah, we can do that.
All right, yes, thank you. That was.
Yeah,
Good work.
And I just wanted to make sure everyone had the most updated versions of our feasibility study documents. Dan made some updates. Dan, thank you so much for that. If you haven't noticed, they're all dated in the bottom corner here. So, these are all dated 11/12. And the updates are largely that the patios were added. Actually, Dan, what, do you want to go through what the changes were?
Yeah, sure, I could do that. So after the response about the library, I changed the terminology over in that area to now a lounge space. I made sure that everything was cohesive, everything was working right. All the labels are, I guess the plans, site plan and um, um, regular floor plans were not working together. So we got that all, making sure that they all jive. The only thing I did change a bit of the interior of the building. The stair and the elevator, the way it was designed before, it had like a weird little area which was not getting utilized. It was a weird space. So I switched the elevator and the stair. And now that space that would have been underneath, your second run of stairs now can be used as a little conversation area. Opens up the area coming out of this multi-purpose room over on the kitchen side. So that cleaned it up about there. And I lost a little bit of space for the closet upstairs. But we still have the closet and everything else. So we didn't really lose much, but
And also, as time progresses here, there'll be other refinements, especially once we get into the schematic design phase, which is much, much more detailed. It'll all be fully dimensioned. It'll start showing all the structure. And we'll discover other little tweaks that need to be done that we'll review with you. And you may also, in the process, see a few items that you really want to rethink again. So that it's still very flexible. It's all on computer. Moving lines around is not a big deal. And so please spend some time on this and then let Dan and I know if there's any other adjustments.
One thing that has come up is, a lot of people have said, why do we need a two-story building, or 2 stories is too big or too much? When the building, I don't know whether I'm being disingenuous, it's really not, it's like a story and a half, that is. Well, but the third story, the attic is not.
Yeah, I'll explain a couple things. Anything over 10,000 square feet ends up having very long hallways, which are impediment for elders. We shorten at what are we at, 15,000 feet? These hallways now are half the length, if there are any hallways at all. The distance you have to walk is only 50% of the distance you would have to do if it was all on one floor. The second story adds 2 things. We really want to encourage people to walk stairs. And these stairs are designed very specifically for people with mobility issues. And of course, the elevators there. It also compacts our footprint on the site. And in reality, it's a less expensive building at 2 stories than it is at 1 story. We have less slab, less foundation, and less roof being built. And we've done a lot of comparisons in the past to show how anything over 10,000 square feet is more economical at 2 stories, and especially for the user group, especially if you have people with handicap issues, walkers, or wheelchairs. It's a much shorter distance to the program that you're going to.
Okay, no, I understand, all right.
John, can I ask you, do me a favor? There was a couple of questions I've got about insulation in the building and whatnot, and we know it's highly efficient. But could you guys send me a wall section and a roof cut so that we know is it R, whatever the R value is in the roof and in the walls?
Yeah, the ceilings are R60 and the walls are R40. And Dan, we grabbed some details off of Wilbraham or long.
Well, I have some pictures of it being installed, so I can give you some ideas. It's just usually we do about 7.5 inches of spray foam insulation in the ceilings. And the walls, it's full cavity. And then outside of that is another 3 inches of rigid insulation. So we're about R60 in the roofs. They're probably more, and on the walls, we got another inch of rigid outside that. So it's a little bit less than the wall roof, but you're still looking at like R45 or something like that.
Yeah, and
But we can get you
also
the numbers.
trying to eliminate cold bridges too. There's no cold. Go ahead, Ken.
Instead of mentioning it to me orally, what I'm asking you to do
Yeah.
is send me.
Yeah, no, most definitely.
Thank
Yeah, you
you.
can do that.
You got it.
Any other questions, comments about those updates? All right. Okay, so then the last, two things that I have in our packet tonight is, when we had a meeting back in July, we talked about the public engagement plan. And that's something that's come up in the last two meetings, is making sure that we're getting the right messages out to the right people at the right time. And so I wanted to pull, I did it as sort of the minutes of that July meeting, but I wanted to pull it out as its own document. And just ask it, we're late on time for tonight, but to ask everyone to look it over. And if anyone has other ideas, and then what I'd like to do is work with Bonnie to move more of these specific things into our timeline and to dole out specific tasks to accomplish each one of these. So this is really, what the key messages are, the types of stakeholders and voters that we need to engage, people who are part of the town government structure, older adults, younger residents, people who, consistently attend town meeting, and then strategies for each one of those. And then a review of the deliverables we could use to reach each one of them. And then we had talked before about how to collect, organize, and incorporate the input. It seems like that's going okay. So we might not need to focus on that last part, but if everyone could just take some time between now and the next meeting to review that, and we can discuss it in more detail at our next meeting, that'd be great. And then last but not least, I wanted to just make sure everyone had this, actually, any questions about this before I don't. Just, okay. So review and let me know. And then last but not least, there have been questions about not only just what the building cost is, but what the operating costs are. I'm gonna direct you to the second page of this first. I met with Chuck and our facilities director, and he put together the categories and some estimates based on what our existing municipal buildings are spending in these categories. John, I think you were gonna get me some of those utility estimates from Wilbraham and North Andover as well.
Yeah.
Or I can give them a call, either one.
I'll get it for you.
Okay. So, and what I did with this information, and again, this is an estimated cost for, this is all of the things. Fire alarm inspections, generator services, elevator services, media equipment, if we have like service contracts on it, custodial supplies, unforeseen repairs. The town has a custodial contract, and so they added on he added on what he anticipated adding another custodian would be. So this is a really comprehensive estimate. So then I took that number and I put it on my set of my chart that comes straight out of the budget book for the last 5 years worth of spending. So I put Chuck's number in on its own line. That won't live, like in reality, that won't live all in my budget. It will live in the facilities budget, but I just wanted to show people and to have this committee be able to speak to. From FY 25, I projected forward to FY 27, given what I would anticipate increases would be, plus with a set of notes for each of these as to how I got to that increased number. And, you know, I had said roughly, I thought it would be about $200,000 more to operate this building. And not all of it will be in my budget, but the senior center is currently 2% of the town's budget. So even if, so this takes my budget from 240 to 452. And again, 100,000 of that won't live in my budget anyway. It will go from 240 to 352.
But that doesn't include the capital cost of the building, that's the operational cost. Right.
Right, what I'm saying is, yes, because the capital cost will, we know that's $250. Is estimated to be $250 on the tax bill. People are asking, you're not gonna build a building and it's not gonna cost anything. What will be the additional operating costs? So we're estimating that additional operating cost to be around $200,000.
So then the COA center would be 3.5% of the budget. That something,
I'd have to do the math on that, but yeah.
which, you know, I mean, that's a really, I think that's a meaningful number.
Mm-hmm.
Meaningful in that it's a low number.
Yeah, right.
That is, we're spending less on seniors than we, you know, that's relative to the size of the population and the needs of the population. I mean, you know. Right, and we can slice that any number of ways.
Actually,
I'm just,
that's fine, right.
I'm just curious, what is this?
Yeah.
You said it's, your costs are 2% of the end of the town.
It's about half, isn't it?
50%?
It's is the school budget, isn't it right about half?
Yeah.
Total budget?
I'd have to
Yeah.
go back and look, but yes, the school budget, and there are fewer. And I don't wanna get into a contest, and there
No,
are
I'm just
fewer
curious.
school age children in town
Yeah.
than there are older adults.
Right.
But the structure of schooling children is
Is
wholly different
different.
than the structure of a senior center, so they are apples and oranges in
No,
that way.
I know.
But
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm just curious.
there are more older adults than there are kids in the school system in town, yeah. So this is the first draft I have done of this, at least labeled as draft. I just wanted everyone to have it so that if they were asked about it, that you could speak to it. If anyone has any questions or something that doesn't seem to add up or make sense, please let me know, because I'm gonna revise this as I go, but that is there. All right. So, oh, budget. Where's my piece? Let me look it up. Here's the chart. I missed a piece of paper. It's a colored piece of paper. Yes, with the budget on it. All right, I don't have mine in front of me.
There you go.
Thank you. Oh, no, I do. I was just writing notes on the back of it. Okay. So this piece of paper is the latest update from Carrie, the town accountant, as of 11/19. So as you know, we have ARPA funds, housing choice funds, and the UDAG funds that are coming together, different funding sources for our project, which totaled up to about 375,000. So this goes through what has been spent out of each account. And so there are no more ARPA funds left. Those are totally spent. There is about 14,000 left in the UDAG funds. And there is 267,000 in the housing choice grant. If you go down to this purple area, the anticipated expenditures, you can see, and in this, you'll note that Omni has already been marked as paid. These are the anticipated expenses. There are some things that might shift, you know, we, authorized Ross Associates as do not exceed 10,000, but we don't have a final bill from them
But it
yet.
won't be more than 10,000.
Right, it won't be more than 10,000. But when you come down to see what is still outstanding, that is overspent by 21,000, right? So when we're talking about the timeline, I just want everyone to keep in mind, you know, some of those bills could come back as less. And John had graciously agreed that, you know, if we're able to go into phase 2, that he might be able to roll forward the balance of the last feasibility payment, which is 15,000, into that next round. So it's not off by a lot, but we do ultimately have to be able to pay the bills. So when we're talking about other things we can do, could do, should do, when we're meeting with resistance to the timeline or resistance to the process, I just wanted everyone to have the update of where we are and how much further we can go until we go for the big ask, because this is basically it, essentially.
I think it's good.
So the expensive canapes at the cocktail hour are out.
Right, no, so, and that's the thing, so there just isn't funding, and if you notice, that's not even on there. In the list of expenditures, that money for that first one is not even on there. Okay, so,
Should we take a poll?
What's that?
yeah,
Cool.
everyone toss it, yeah, so I mean, in terms of. It's not intended to worry anybody, I'm just saying, I think everyone needs to know, we have a certain amount of money, we have allocated and spent that amount of money till we get to town meeting. Questions, comments, concerns, next meeting, I
Public input.
yeah, I'm gonna suggest that we table grant opportunities and timelines. We kind of talked about that a little bit, but I'll follow up with more with Alicia and have more. But so any public input?
Oh, can I just mention one thing about the grant? So if we
Yes.
table that, can we
Yes.
add in, the possibility of discussing, donations, like fundraising? I know it's a different committee, but
It's, well, the Friends group, we just today received, a huge packet of information from Wilbraham's, president of their Friends group they've already raised over $900,000. So they sent us a packet. Well, part of the packet is the get out the vote materials of everything they used. And they also sent us all the materials that they used to raise money, whether it was putting in the little bricks, or if you wanted to donate and get a plaque in a room. It says how much every room is and all kinds of information about
it's kind of like
fundraising.
a how-to guide.
Yes, and the materials you need to do it already done. So we're gonna be reviewing that before the next meeting and trying to see. But again, he said, don't even bother to start anything related to fundraising until you have town meeting approval. I mean, you can prep for it, but don't go to anybody to ask them because they won't do anything until it's approved.
Right? Mention one more
Yeah.
thing on the
Mhm.
not fundraising, but grants.
Yes,
So you had a list of, I think it was on tonight.
was in capital planning,
That
yeah.
nice book. Can you add to that the fact that the state is willing to give us and pay for the solar system on the roof? So we'll be applying for a grant. They can't give us any other grants for a senior center, but they can support solar energy. So there'll be a solar energy grant as well.
Okay, great. Do you have any?
Well, I talked to Jamie Elliott, I said, get into a little something. So there is a quiet.
Is that gonna interfere with his ability to give us an earmark for
Could
something
be
else?
totally different pool of money.
So
Energy efficiency is a big deal in the state.
do we have a estimated value?
It's over 100,000, but that's not in our budget, because we don't have it in the budget to look. So
No, I know, but I was trying to put it in parentheses, so you think about
We'd
100,000?
have to estimate the
But it
value.
would put a pretty significant dent in the operational costs.
Yes, exactly, that's the point.
We can't know how much that is, or?
I understand what you're.
Any idea, John, if we're able to get a grant to cover solar?
Jamie Elton's still.
No, but
For
how
this
much?
size, this size building's probably $50,000-$60,000. And also you would probably want to be able to have battery packs in order to take advantage of the solar after hours. So after the sun's down, those run around $10,000 a piece.
We could talk to Nathan about.
Okay,
we have to
Alright.
realize-
okay.
You know,
Got a ways to go. Ways.
Center doesn't operate after dark anyway.
Yeah, we want to say.
But you'd want light in
One
the
day we
parking.
can
lot.
send
Generator.
it.
No,
Yeah.
but-
I think you can-
But you store the energy in the batteries and the batteries continue to help with the building. It just reduces your overall energy usage at night when you have the most use of all.
We've had a number of people already asking about sliders, so
Yeah.
this helps conclude that.
No, great, absolutely. Yeah, everything we can add to that list is great. Okay, any public inputs?
No, but yeah, it's doing better than this.
Once, going twice.
Pauline Center.
Okay,
Sold.
no, so, all right. So, some important dates coming up, and I realized I didn't have CPC on it. So, Wednesday, December 4th is the CPC meeting. Do we know what time
We don't,
that is?
I want to.
Probably 6 p.m.
Is that in the same room where they do the,
And just to,
Bye, thank you. Are you? John was just waving that he was, yeah.
okay,
all right,
so, and just to make the committee aware, so I spoke briefly with Janet Provodakis. She is looking into the state regulations regarding the expenditure of CPC funds and what the approval process has to be in terms of the coordination with the recreation department. And that those administrative guidelines and or laws have maybe changed. So she was looking into what exactly that process would be. The takeaway is that there would have to be some approval from or partnership with the recreation department in order to access the CPC funds for recreational purposes. And that's her view of where it stands now, although that was subject to being tweaked. Just to make folks aware, if you know anybody on the Parks and Rec Commission or in the Recreation Department.
Katie.
Okay, so then, thank you for that update, yeah, so then, we'll have to schedule our next meeting, of course, but then we have Saturday, December 7th at 10 a.m. I'm gonna do a public input session here with just some donuts and coffee. Smaller scale, maybe, I mean, if we get 30 people, that'd be great too. And then, thank you, Ellen, for arranging another public input session Wednesday, December 11th at 6 p.m. at the Ayer Library. Then I was gonna suggest after that, we kind of take a break as people are gonna become more focused on their holidays, whichever holiday that is, but they'll become focused on their holidays, and then we pick it back up again in January.
We have a friends meeting, don't we? Is that the 8th?
So
It's the second Tuesday.
10th, I think, yeah, the 10th. So Friends of their seniors is 12:10 at 1 p.m.
But we made it 12:30.
Oh, you're right, 12:30, because the COA board is at 2 p.m. That same day. Okay. So in January, I'm hoping that we will make our way through the necessary boards and committees. And that we can do additional public input, take a look at the public engagement plan. So in the meantime, when do we want to meet again?
We should meet after all these public meetings, shouldn't we, to review?
After the next select board meeting.
I was gonna say, yeah, something to do with the select board meeting, you know, right?
So select board is gonna meet on December 3rd.
Are we supposed to go to that?
Yes, because I think we didn't ask them to vote on whether they were going to grant a February special town meeting. They were gonna discuss it and then it was gonna be decided at the next. meeting.
So we
So
saw
is everything for lobby then?
Should we let them know that we could consider March?
Yeah, I can talk to Robert about that.
Do we want to lobby the select board members directly?
Okay.
No, well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm the person for that job. But they are our elected representatives. Do we want to?
I'd be happy to talk to Janice.
Mhm.
And, and maybe Sean too.
So I would be curious to know whether the shift from February to March is substantive enough for them.
No,
I
I-
have my doubts, but we should ask them.
Yep.
Okay, so December 3rd, the next select board meeting, I have been assured we are not on tomorrow night's finance committee agenda. So December 3rd is the next select board meeting. December 4th is the CPC meeting. The 7th is a public input session, as is the 11th. So I think the question is, if we meet after the next select board meeting. That's roughly 2 weeks, but not on the 4th because that's CPC.
The following week.
The 11th, yeah, also on a Wednesday is that public input session. So I think we need to go to a different day if possible. And I guess the question is, are we trying to meet? If we're trying to meet twice in December, then we should meet the first and the third week potentially. We may not need to meet twice in December.
I vote we meet right after the select board meeting
Okay,
that week.
okay.
Thursday the 5th.
That's fine with me.
Well, we've got the CPC on the 4th.
Right, so they're saying the 5th.
Fifth.
And then you have the 7th.
Yeah,
Jesus.
So you're gonna have the 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th.
Like our sixth, we had something going on the sixth.
Nobody's got a
I
light.
mean, if you guys want to delay it to the next week, that's fine. So when I look at our action items. We've got, Dan, you're gonna create a shortened version of the phase 1 environmental that we can post on the website. We need to get a meeting scheduled with Natural Heritage. Now that we have those 2 results, you're gonna follow up, Ken, on survey report and potentially schedule the site walk for the committee.
That's a easy stuff.
No, I know, I'm just trying to look and see if there's anything that informs our timeline. I'm gonna edit the video and the voiceover for the PowerPoint presentation. John is going to provide programming photos to incorporate into our presentations. I'm gonna get some more stats on the social determinants of health and the costs of not acting. I'm gonna get testimonials on senior center use also from John or the other ones, as well as getting. Oh goodness, I can't read my own handwriting. More debt schedule information and changes from Barbara, like as what level of changes on our side, what cost on her side. And meet with Alicia about an updated grant timeline. Also talk with Robert about the new timeline, the new potential for a March timeline. Other people's tasks, let's see, Catlin is gonna send information on insulation to you,
That was
Ken.
just,
Yeah. And then you're gonna add contingencies to the timeline.
We have to decide if I should still be trying to set up meetings in January. Because I was talking to Jim Bernard about the Rotary Club that he was gonna try to set up in January.
I think we definitely want everybody who has contacts with any of these organizations. Please try and get meetings. That is legwork that would be super helpful to me. I just unfortunately cannot schedule all.
So if anybody wants to set up something for a group, please let me know so I can coordinate it with the other ones. Okay,
Yeah,
Make a quick comment. Do we need to be careful, I know this is down your alley, but do we need to be careful to post the notices if we're gonna have 5 or more? It's a quorum is 5, right? Are we supposed to, under the open meeting law, post that, if it's the board of town hall? Take it down, if it's a meeting.
so,
When we outreach is when we're gonna reach out, whatever.
So outreach is considered a,
Well, if
well,
we have 5, I don't, that's
so
why I don't know.
the way I can, I'll clarify with, the open meeting law, so, I mean, technically speaking, so we posted as an open meeting our, November 7th.
Mhm.
But it was not a meeting, it was a notice that we would be doing it, because we did not call that to order, and that was this very specific instructions from Carly and this very specific wording from Robert on what to put on that. And yet there were 5 of us engaged in one conversation at capital planning this evening. And there was no prompt that I needed to do a separate notice. So I will follow up and make sure, just so that we are,
I don't want to be questioned later that, you know, it's.
Yeah.
Range
Yeah.
of the open meeting law.
yeah, okay, yep, no, that makes a lot of sense. So do we want to delay then, given that there's so many things that first week of December? Do we want to wait till the week of
I
the
think
night?
having night meetings on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th is acceptable.
Says-
Having, yeah, 3 nights in a row.
And next week's Thanksgiving too, so
Oh, yeah.
it's 2 days.
I'll have
crushed.
to do all those
How much we
meetings.
need? I'm the items I have. We'll have an update by then.
So I'm not, one option would be for this group to decide to divide and conquer, because there are 10 of us. We don't all have to be, I'm gonna be at all of them as the chair, but like, we don't all have to go to the CPC meeting. There could be a group that decides to go to CPC and a group that decides to go to the select board meeting, so I want to encourage everyone to go to as many meetings as they feel like they contribute to the cause. But this is, as I've said before, this is a marathon, so we won't all be able to go to all of the meetings. But, we're not in control of when the select board is or when the CPC
Do we
is.
know when we're supposed to go to the planning committee?
We haven't got a date yet, but
But we need the documents to take, right?
I was gonna offer to do the planning board. I can pretty much, but I can tell you that we don't have our next meeting until December 10th, I think, and then we're not gonna have a second meeting in the month of December, with the 24th, which we usually meet the 2nd and 4th Tuesday.
is just all, he'll know,
Excuse me.
Yes, yes.
he knows.
No, I am, got it right here. It's the same difference. Yeah, we already met this night, 5th. And the 19th, so we're not. And
So we meet on the 3rd time, or the 2nd and 4th?
this was election next year, didn't we? And now we get another meeting for the 10th of December. The 2nd Tuesday, and then the 4th, so there's one opportunity, the 10th of December. Couple of us could.
Well, if it ends up being set up, you can let people know.
Yeah. Well, I'll ask you to get on the agenda. We'll figure out who's gonna go, how it goes.
So then, given. So we've got 3 things the week of December 2nd, and we would then have potentially 3 things the week of the 9th. So. It's splitting. Do we want to do December 12th? And that'll be just the 3rd thing.
Yes.
Is that, you mean for our meeting?
Mhm.
Okay, December 12th?
So I'm wrong, the planning board meets next Tuesday, that's. The 5th of today, so the 12th, we met the 12th, we're meeting on the 26th of November. But that agenda is probably gonna be very, very full, because I know it's a lot on it, so I would be looking to put us on the 10th of December. With the planning board,
So you are meeting on the 3rd and the 10th?
no, we're meeting on, the next meeting is the 26th, next week. Then the following month, we only have 1 meeting, and that's on the 10th of December. So I'm gonna ask if we can put on the 10th of December. Agenda, because I know the 26th is packed
Okay,
already.
all right, okay. So our next meeting would be Thursday, December 12th. Do you want to do 6 p.m.? 5 p.m., 4 p.m.? PM.
Noon.
That's early as you like to do it.
Yeah, I'm good, but whatever.
Whatever. yeah.
Okay,
Okay.
is earlier easier? Because you don't have baseball anymore, are you?
I'm
into
wide
basketball?
open that whole afternoon, so whatever.
Would people
Anything.
prefer something like 5 o'clock? I mean, I think we have done quite well to meet in the evening to allow the public to participate as they would like to. You know, if you want to meet an hour earlier that day.
Sure, works for me.
Okay.
Does that mean we're gonna finish an hour earlier?
Yes,
Only 9?
all right. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Chair says aye. We adjourn at 9:15 PM.